Good afternoon and welcome to the final day of our Artificial Intelligence event. My name is Annelien Swillen, this is Gert Scherlings,
Hi.
And hereby a warm welcome to each of you. We've all just experienced a live streaming session in which the algorithm, a machine learning algorithm that is, generates what we call ornamutations in real time, based upon almost 1,000 images of works by more than 100 jewelry makers. And for today's session, we invited the participating artists and designers who submitted images of their works for the project to have a conversation on how they experienced the project, what questions they might have, what thoughts the project triggered for them. What we'll also do today is we'll share some more insights into the project from our side. We will start with an explanation of what machine learning is, since we think that to have a better understanding of how it works will be inspiring for you as well, hopefully, and will certainly trigger some reflections. Some housekeeping before we start. If you like to interact with us or each other today or would like to ask questions, feel free to do so in the chat on Zoom and Twitch or Twitch, as well as by unmuting yourself and just start talking. That's perfectly fine. We'll see how it goes with all people. It's a little bit of a test there as well. We prepared a few questions and topics that we would love to discuss with you, but also feel free to bring your own questions to the Zoom table today. So don't be shy and feel free to interrupt during the conversation. Similar to the previous conversations, this one will be recorded as well for research purposes, and each of the sessions will be shared on the project website, artificialintelligems.com, next week or the week after. So if you would like to rewatch some of the conversations or you missed one of the sessions, then you can have a look there as well. And yeah, to use your camera or not is entirely up to you, but I'm glad to see some faces, some familiar faces here today. So that's very lovely. The conversations usually last for 1 hour. Let's see how it goes. Yeah, it's a very casual conversation this afternoon. So yeah, let's dive right in. And I think that we will start with.
Or maybe we can start with a few questions and then
we can start with questions. That's true. Yeah. I wanted to. Maybe that's nice.
For people's first impressions, maybe for some it might have been the first streaming session.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, maybe, I mean, if any of you would like to react or, I don't know, share a certain experience or question already, that's perfectly fine. If not, don't worry. We can, I think maybe, we can, for starters, it might be interesting if we briefly introduce the project, like what were we inspired by, and then also if you could share some insights into how machine learning works, because at least for us, it's fascinating to know how the process works, and what happened to these images, like what is the learning in machine learning. So. But maybe first, more general concerning the project. As with many artistic projects, I think it starts with a question. So for us, it was a bit like we were fascinated. Greg was already experimenting with machine learning, and we were fascinated by this technology as a tool. And then we asked ourselves, okay, what would happen if we would feed the machine with thousands or almost 1,000 of images of contemporary jewelry? What will come out of it? And what would that mean for jewelry, as a discipline and as a discourse? And then, of course, there is the opportunity to work with existing databases, but to us it seems so much more exciting to work with designers and artists' works, because this adds another layer to the project, because it's not only about what can the machine, so to speak, generate in terms of images, but also how can it be a tool to collaborate with many people and in fact collectively create something new. So I think that, like, in a nutshell, this was a bit like the starting point for the project.
In a lot of earlier machine learning projects, a lot of people just ripped a lot of things from the internet images without considering the ownership of the original image or piece of art. And I think it's a common practice in machine learning, but I think it was interesting for us for this project to include the intent of the original designers to have their work being used in this project, because it changes what it's about, because that way it becomes collaboration, and else we just might have stolen works or something. It's kind of like stealing if you would just take data online and just the images you want. It's interesting because in a sense, like in a copyright law, there's no copyright on the output of a machine learning algorithm in the moment at the moment in Belgium. So in a case you could legally steal other people's work to use in the algorithm. Yeah. In a sense.
Yeah, like regulations concerning authorship, AI authorship, are on the table. Like I had a discussion with a lawyer, Judith Bosset, and I mean, what the outputs of the AI, it's not the AIs. So it's like the people behind, like we could say like, okay, it's like it's our output, but as we've just mentioned, like we're not interested in claiming it in that sense. We really want to look like how can it offer something to really like create a community and make something together. And that's something that here I see some things popping up in the chat, and also like this idea of like ownership, authorship. This is something that I really would love to discuss with some of you today as well, and really like hear your perspectives as participants of the project. Like how do you see this theme, and how do you experience participating in a project like this? So I mean, you feel free to share some perspectives now, or like we can come back to it later. I see there's some. Linda, you asked in the chat, did you in any way intervene in the dream session? Yes, we did. We played around with it a bit. Yeah.
The one thing we control is how fast it moves. So we don't choose what it will show, but we can choose how fast it wants to move to new things, and that's something we can play with.
Yeah, and it's.
I think it's interesting to play with the speed because, especially early on, when we ran it and tested it, the faster I made it go, the more heartache it gave Annelien to see all these designs, and you don't have enough time to grasp them. She wants to save an image of everything she finds cool, but I think it's very interesting how ungraspable it can be. So I think it's interesting to play with the speed at how it can go so fast. It can create so many images. It can, on my computer, it can create 30 designs a second. If you ran it on a larger server or system, it could go even faster. So in a way, I think it was interesting. It's interesting to show, like it takes no amount of effort for it to design a new piece or a new image, I would say. Yeah. That's why we play around with it.
And I think that's interesting on many levels, because I mean, then you see how fast it can go, like, and it can generate this infinite amount of images, like almost without any effort, like super fast, even faster than we would be able to, I don't know, look at it. But then on the other hand, as you just mentioned, like it gives me a heartache indeed, because I really want to look at like all the shapes that it generates and how it moves, and then like I can't follow the pace, and it's also gone forever, like when it's passed, and you can't really. This is something that I've like mentioned the first day. I think like you can't really grasp you can't really like own it, like you can't have it, but still it's there in a certain way. And then on the other hand, like this the speed with how it can generate new shapes, this is, I mean, it also makes it like it seems so effortless in a certain way, and there is like this ambiguous position between, on the one hand, it seems it's very special because it only exists for a certain seconds and then it disappears again. But then on the other hand, when you see it moving so fast, then it's also a bit as if it loses. It's like not exclusivity, but like the uniqueness in a way, because it keeps going on. So there is something. There is like, I think like playing around with it in terms of speed also triggers some reflections. But I must admit, I prefer the slower movements in which you can really see what happens more. And then like another question, which is also interesting. Did anybody recognize her piece of jewelry? To which someone answers, at some point I did, I guess, not 100% sure. I didn't. Something that looked like one ring, I handed in. Yeah, I did not. Yeah, this is also fascinating. Because yeah, it doesn't try to copy or something.
Well, the point of the algorithm and how it is designed, it's designed for large sets of data. So like it's originally designed for like 100,000 images. And the more images you feed it, the less it will look like any single one of them. But because of the scope of this project, we are not able to get that many images. So the more that it learns from few images, the more it copies. Well, copies might be a wrong word. The more it copies from the original images. So because of the scale of this project, chances are bigger that the designs are closer and closer to the original images you've sent in. So I think there's a few works that during the whole process they kept coming through. Like there's a white piece with like and then in a lot of the designs it kept coming up. I think that's interesting. Like in a way, it was easy for the algorithm to learn how these types of jewelry would look, and for other pieces it would be very hard. Like it's interesting that the machine like as a kind of develops a preference for certain types of shapes and things that's not within our own control. We don't say which pieces of jewelry it should learn from.
And I think it usually happens with the textures. I think not like the shapes of the submitted pieces, but like as you've just mentioned, like a certain, there is like this black and white texture that keeps coming up, or like or some I find quite fascinating. Some generated images are really similar to some of the submitted works, whereas like those were only, for example, like 3 or 5 photographs of like the entire collection. So it's funny that that's what it's picked up on. There is like another comment. We are like switching between Twitch and Zoom here. How new is it? I find that with kind of image elaboration, the results after a while start to look all the same, not really indistinguishable. I mean, I can tell that it's not all the same image. It's unique, but also feels more of the same, which is part of the appeal, I guess. Yeah, I think maybe you would like to say something on that as well. But for me, this has to do with like that it's a certain aesthetic or like a certain recognizable sort of output that is generated. And like each dreaming session is different, but it's true that like there is a certain essence that is similar to all the sessions.
There is a certain aesthetic that a lot of the Stylegram models, there's a certain sameness in how they generate images, and I think we were a bit worried maybe, but over time it will be easier and more people will use it, and I think there might be a possibility for these types of algorithms that people will get bored with this style of image. I think that's a real danger, but I think new algorithms will. I think the pace of the researchers developing new algorithms will always generate new styles of images. But I think, yeah, if everyone would start using Stylgan now, I think people would get saturated with certain aspects of the image that they all seem to have like certain characteristics. Like there's a paper we read, and it was about like the images, they all like you expect there to be some detail that isn't really there. They're all very suggestive, and I think why that's the case is because it's kind of based on the idea of a visual cortex, that it works with different layers and it tries to understand something about seeing. So in a sense, it's trying to trick our perception of things. Like we think we perceive an object, but when you look at it very closely, you see that, oh, but the lighting doesn't come from a certain style, or the shadow doesn't seem realistic. It's like at first glance they can look very realistic, but in a sense they still have some flaws. But the longer you train the algorithm, the more realistic it will be. But we don't have the resources or the scale to train this model for 3 months at Google or something.
And also you mentioned better, but we are not looking for photorealistic.
That's not the...
because you have these Stylgan algorithms who are trained on people's faces, and the data sets are so large that you sometimes cannot distinguish which image is like generated by the algorithm and which is really like a photo of someone, like a
person's
portrait.
Face, yeah.
But we deliberately don't want to like get to that point.
It's not realism,
because we're looking for like something else or like something new, and not like, is this a real like existing physical piece, or is it like a digital generated image? And the paper that Greg was referring to, there it is called Visual Indeterminacy, and they discuss how, like, as you've just mentioned, that at first glance it looks like I've also posted a few like rings in the beginning of the project on Instagram, which like at the blink of an eye might look like a physical piece, but then when you look closer, you see like there's something strange happening, like with the textures. And so yeah.
Annelien,
Katja, go ahead.
Maybe the mics
talking about this, what I thought was kind of fascinating is that the aesthetics have a certain feel of 70s or maybe 80s jewelry, goldsmithing work. So sort of old-fashioned aesthetics, but then so very new at the same time. So there's a fascinating contradiction there.
I have the same, to be honest. Like the first time when I saw it, like what it generates, it really reminds of these experiments in goldsmithing with like various kind of colored stones, and like the gold has like different textures, and it sometimes it really reminds of that, which I thought, like you just mentioned, which I think is quite funny, because we were trying to like create something not necessarily futuristic, but like something new and like very contemporary, but then in a way it reminds of like yesterday it was mentioned, like as if you would heat metal, like you would overheat it again and again, like sometimes it really gets these kind of textures.
Yeah, it really reminds me of my school days at the vocational school, and what was considered modern over there. And not that it was in the 70s, but you know, it's really, so it's sort of fascinating. And will it change when the machine will learn more? Do you think the aesthetics will change? Did I understand that correctly from could it be?
Yeah, so with this model, because the data set is not that big, it will, I think chances are that if we would train it for a very long time, it would look very, very much like the real sent pictures, and less like it will be harder to get like these in-betweens that we're seeing now, which is what we think is interesting, is that it like morphs this different aspects of different pieces of jewelry, and that is very interesting. If you'd give it a very long time, I can explain it later how it works. It would learn that it will learn the aesthetics of the individual pictures, and it would get better at making something in the style of the individual pieces, and it would be less collaborative, I would say. You would find more like the individual pictures and design, and less like the generalizing qualities that it has now.
Yeah.
If that's clear, I don't know.
I would still be curious though to see also the whole process of learning, and interesting.
But yeah, we don't plan on stopping the training just yet.
No.
You can always go.
But there is also this danger that like it collapses, as you've mentioned a few days ago, and then it becomes all quite similar, right? Then
the training process is very volatile. It's like it kind of is like gardening, and if you do it wrong, if you try to be too fast or something, the model collapses, and it will just design like 3 things, and it will be stuck there, and it would not be able to learn new things. I think Tobias talked about it the second day. It's looking for an optimum spot. It internally it keeps a score, and it's looking for like the best way it can make images in its own way. And sometimes it could be trapped in a place where it only makes 3 types of designs, and then it gets really boring, because the dreaming session, it would just be these 3 designs all over again. And that's a danger of training it for longer. But if you're careful, like with a plant, and don't give it too much water and take it slowly, I think we might get different design stills.
Okay, excuse me. So does this mean we're at the best times? You know, this kind of psychedelic feeling we're getting, we're going to get used to it, or it's going to be like more something that we've really got used to and not appealing and not exciting anymore? Does this mean it's really at the prime time in a sense? Because it's so new, you know, it's so different. And that psychedelic feeling maybe going to change in a way, slow down, and we're going to start seeing the pieces, which, I mean,
sad, but the other part is still that the research itself, a lot of it is open source, and that's very handy. So this algorithm is currently seen as the cutting edge for making these types of images. In one sense, you have so many different ones, but a lot of them still are very they make very fuzzy designs in a sense.
On the website, on the About page, I posted a link to the algorithm that we used. So if you want to know which one it is, or like
I had someone ask the name, and
then you can check it out.
You can check the paper if you want some science and mathematics behind it as well.
But I'm quite fascinated by this like open source attitude in the machine learning world, at least if I understand correctly how it works, that you really like share codes among each other and like play around with it, and like it's a
very academic setting where a lot of the research is in a very academic setting. So in that sense, there's an advantage as long as you study enough about the basics of computer science and math. You can implement it in your own way. You're not.
But what I was trying to say is that I find it's quite lovely as well that those codes are like shared among people, and like we were able to work with it as well, and to like develop it further for our own project because it's shared online. And that's also like the beauty of it. It's not that like it's all protected. There is like this sharing and like trying to grow something together, and I think that's quite wonderful.
Linda already posed a question in the chat, and I actually have the same. Linda asked, could you explain in a few simple words how it really works? How do you feed the machine? What command do you put in the algorithm?
Yes, we can. Definitely.
Did you tell it to make jewelry, or what did you tell it?
Oh, so one basic thing. So it works with images. So we could have made this about cars, or we could have made this about telephones, images of telephones. So there's nothing about it that is designed for jewelry. It just works with digital images. Digital images go in and digital images come out. So I might give a short.
Yeah, I'm going to. Yeah. Oh, we're going to share the screen because it will be more easy with.
So like a way the.
Sorry, I'm just making it more easy. Yes.
Yeah. So the way a computer sees an image, in this example, it's a black and white image of the figure 8. The computer doesn't see any shape or anything. Originally, it's just an array of numbers, and the numbers represent the intensity of the colors. In this case, it's just a black and white, and we see where it's white, the numbers go up, and where it's black, the numbers stay 0. So it's very abstract and far away from how we humans originally see an image. And then these arrays of numbers, they consist of individual pixels, as we know. They are fed into a neural network. And these neural networks, they can, in this example, oh wait.
I think that was hiervoor staat.
Yeah, just move this.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. These neural networks in this image, wait, can you see? Yeah. These neural networks in this image, it's a small example. All the layers consist of neurons, and the next layer is all layers consist of neurons, and the previous layer is connected. Every neuron of the previous layer is connected with the neurons of the next layer. And in this image, this has 4 layers, and it has like a bunch of neurons. But like the actual algorithm that we're using, it has like 30 layers, and it goes in the millions how many different neurons it has, and it becomes very complex in a short amount of time. So if you have this simple example, this neuron, this is a neuron that's connected to all these neurons, and the way to see it is that each neuron learns something about these neurons, and then it tells if it agrees or not. It lights up and gives that information to the next neuron. So it's a very large net of neurons, and they are cascading. And what's interesting about this is that it's a totally different way than classical programming. In classical programming, it's like a flowchart. If that happens, do that. If that happens, do that. And as a programmer, classically, you have to know everything that can happen, and you have to program a line for everything that can happen. You have to anticipate everything that will happen. And so in classical programming, it was very hard to make something to recognize images or something that to react in the moment. It was very hard because the programmer would have to think of every possible situation and try to program this. But these neural nets, they make it possible for the program to learn out of data itself and to adjust itself, so it knows to take which decision at which point. That's how these neural networks work. So you have an input, the image, and they light up different neurons, and these neurons give out new activations and can make new images. The way this model works, can I enlarge it?
It's already enlarged, yeah.
The way this model works is that it's brought up in 2 important parts. You have one that's called the generator, and you have one that's called the discriminator. The generator, it takes a small amount of numbers, it's called a latent, and it generates an image. And you have a discriminator, and the discriminator, its job is to try and see which images are from the original data set. In this case, it's the images of jewelry pieces, and which are created by the generator. So it wants to find out which ones are fake and which ones are real. And the generator, it never sees the original images. It just gets a message. If it generated an image, did the discriminator catch it, or did the discriminator not catch it? If the discriminator didn't catch it and it passed the test, the generator gets like a well done, and it's allowed to do more in the same. And if the discriminator finds that the image is made by the generator has to do something differently. At the same time, the discriminator also has to learn. It learns when it learns afterwards if it was right or wrong, if it detected a real image or a fake image. And if it got it right, it looks more for the same. And if it didn't get it right, if it thought a generated image was a real image, then it has to look for other things. And the interesting thing is that at the start, both of these are like randomly set, and they just absolutely don't work. But given enough time and enough images of the pieces, very slowly, and like through billions and billions of takes, each of them gets slightly better at fooling the other, and they only grow, they only get better by fooling the other one. So it's interesting, if one of these gets stuck in a certain way, the other one can't learn to get better. They only get better because they're adversarial, and that's why that's called a generated adversarial network. So it's interesting in a sense that the images you saw are being generated by the generator, which never saw the real images of the jewelry. The only thing it ever gets is you did well or you didn't do well. And through that process, because it does it billions of times, it learns stuff like, should I make it out of gold? Should the background be white? Like, should it have a shadow? It learns all these things by this very delicate process going over millions and millions of times in a row. And that's the basics of it. There's a lot of math behind it, but the essence is,
yeah,
that's the essence of it. Yeah.
And what's also interesting is that it doesn't see or like understand gold, as you've just mentioned.
No, it only sees the color yellow. Well, it doesn't. You could say it doesn't even see yellow. It sees a combination of red, blue, and green.
Yeah.
And
yeah, so it's like broken down in like these
layers,
mathematical.
Yeah. You want like the early layers of the network to go. You want the early layers of the network to learn about the shape, and like the further you go around the network, you want to learn it about the details of the picture, and that's why it's called stylogram. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if any of you caught any of it.
If you want to stop sharing, you need to do this one. Yeah.
So did you interfere in any way into this process of the machine learning, so that, for example, you told it, but that is not,
you got it wrong.
Yeah, you got it wrong. Exactly.
So we had, so I put you have something called the learning rate, and that's like if that's the step you take when the algorithm learns something. So if the discriminator gets it right and you put the learning rate too high, it will only look for that thing. And if the generator gets it right and you put the learning rate too high, it will, like if it did a spot of yellow and it got it right, maybe the next time it will make the whole image yellow. So our learning rate was too high at sometimes, and then the model collapses. So the only thing we did was lowered the learning rate and went back a few steps, and then the model. So we never say to the model this is good or bad. We just adjusted the learning rate because at a certain point the model collapsed and the images became very boring. So in a sense, yeah, yes and no. But the small feedback loop between the generator and the discriminator, we don't touch that.
Yeah, we didn't interfere. Like, oh, we
it
have
doesn't
something.
Get feedback.
Yeah, like we have something in mind, so we will like respond to get there or something. Yeah. No, but it's true that it collapsed like with the. Like after the first open call, we received many messages of people asking if they could like still submit images. but we were already like training the algorithm, so we couldn't like stop it and just add new images. But then it also collapsed, and then we actually like started again, but then with like the entire collection, with like the first and second open call, and then we like started training it just like from zero, so to speak, like again.
I think it's very interesting, the design of the algorithm, in that Tobias in his book has it that like in every artist there's a discriminator and a generator, in a sense. Like, you want to play, you want to create, and then you look at it and you judge, like, is this something I want to share in the world, or is it something for in the trash? I think it's interesting that like the idea of the adversarial things in the same algorithm, that was in machine learning a very giant leap forward. In, we don't have to judge anymore if it's doing good or bad, it's learning by itself. And that idea is very powerful.
Yeah, and I see like there is, like, as you've just mentioned, like maybe an analogy to be made between how a human artistic process might work and how the machine works.
To me, something that was really, really interesting is that it was still like looking really organic as an output, you know, like it's machine learning, it's machine generated, but it's still really natural looking. In a way, it reminded me of a lot of images that I saw growing up, because my father is a researcher in the medical field. So a lot of his images of cells and stuff, they really, really reminded me what I saw in the dreaming session. And that, to me, probably also because I work with organic materials in my jewelry process and stuff, was really, really interesting.
Yeah.
I think we always think about code as something very digital and code, and then we think of like this very pixelated or low polygon art. But if you think about it, a lot in nature, you could say cells are also made out of code. If you make your code complex enough, the organic things will arrive. It's my opinion. Like, we always think about code as something very cold and distant, but like in there's the DNA of a tree makes a very organic tree, but you could get the essence of a tree, you could download the DNA and you could put it on a CD-ROM and it would be very digital, but that's all the information you would need for the idea of a tree.
What is funny is that you talk about the machine like you would talk about children or puppies. You feed it, you train it, and you play with it. And I think for us, it's hard to understand, how do you feed it? Well, and how do you train it? So I'm not going to try to understand, but can I borrow Greg for a few days or a few weeks or something?
We will do workshops. No.
Yeah, good.
So, in a sense, we are still stuck with the idea of, we are giving it images of jewelry. It's not making them out of thin air. So in a sense, but I think in a lot of human activity, most of the things we know and do, we only know them by learning them from other people. I like this idea of, we think we're so complex as humans, but if you would put us on an abandoned island and pit us against a chimpanzee will be smart enough to survive. And chances of us, without our tools and our books and other people's to call, surviving on an island, I think it would be very hard. Like, we are a species that's so dependent on giving true information and sharing and communicating. So
but it's true, Linda. For me as well, it's still like this complex, mysterious, almost magical process. And I mean, in a way, like, it's all around us, AI, and like it's in like translating websites, and like, I don't know, it's like everywhere, but like, it's also very invisible in a certain sense, and you're not always aware of it, and how it may impact your lives, and like how it might influence you, and to learn from you how it works. Well, I can't do the coding or the programming, but like, you talking to me about the process and you explaining it to me also makes me more aware of all these processes that like are continuously happening in the background or like and surround us.
I find very interesting that this comparison between the artistic practice, artist as a generator and as a discriminator. This, yeah, it's kind of a scheme of cognitive process of an artist, and it made me think about psychology in 90s when it was. The cognitive processes were described in terms of computer, brain as like a process has this processing power, etc., etc. And at the same time, we are using for machine very organic phrases such as we feed them. So there is something very interesting going on in our vocabulary and our understanding.
Yeah, I think it's also it's kind of dangerous in a sense, because a lot of people in AI, especially in companies and in Silicon Valley, they talk about the machines like they already work like human brains, like it's exactly the same. But we know so little about how a brain works and how complex it is that like I don't think you can seriously say that a human works like a computer like we're using right now. What we can say is that the algorithm is inspired, and it's a very simplified version of what a neuron would do. So we're totally not there, but it's very easy for programmers and coders. And I think a lot of people see people as, oh yeah, it's just like a computer. But I think that's a very top-down view in a sense. But still, it's very interesting what's coming out of the algorithms.
Yeah. But then on the other hand, it's also interesting, Marcus Dussotoy, who we talked with 2 days ago, how he mentions in his book that like, is our human code so different from like a computer code? And this is also a little bit more your topic as well, but because our brains are also constantly reacting to patterns and looking for patterns. So this research into AI also sheds light on like, okay, but maybe our brains and like consciousness and everything are this is in contrast with what you just said, but like are maybe more working like machines or patterns or like processes than we would think or would like to think. So
yeah. I've seen that there's a lot of research now that is learning from the neural networks of computers and trying to see if what the algorithms are doing can explain stuff in the brain, and sometimes it's successful and sometimes it isn't. So I think there's a lot of possibility for feedback, but it's also very clear that a lot of people in companies that do AI and stuff, they're selling it like it's already conscious in a sense. While it's very the program is still very determined, and we still don't have agency as we experience it as humans. It doesn't have agency in that sense. I think there's a lot of questions.
Yeah. Wonderful to see all those questions. I'm going to... Did you use all the work that you received? Yes, we did. This wasn't clear, I realized afterwards in the open call, also because we called it an open call, but we used all the submitted images except for the ones that photographed pieces on the body, because we really wanted to work with like the pieces themselves. I think it can be extremely interesting to work with bodies as well in the pictures, but for this project we decided not to do that. So we had these list of guidelines for the images, and so all the images that were submitted were accepted and are now part of the collection that we trained the algorithm upon.
Yeah, I think the reason as well is like if we were gonna say, oh, this is interesting jewelry and this seems like it's flimsy, then we are already telling the algorithm from what it has to learn, and by giving it this open call, we kind of hoped it would give a large variety of jewelry, and then it can learn something more generally. Like, who are we to say what the algorithm has to learn from if we want to have something that it's in collaboration with AI?
Yeah, and also because we really, through this open call, we really wanted to reach a variety of makers and a variety of jewelry works, and also break out of the contemporary art jewelry bubble, which is often like referred to as being very in crowd, and like try to reach people beyond that. And also because the algorithm offers the potential to not really mix, but in a way like make a blend is not really the right word, but bring all those works together and then create something new out of that. So that was like the main intention of working with an open call and not selecting the input to go beyond our own control and our own decision making as well.
What I found interesting about that, without having the body, you don't have the dimensions of the pieces.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
Very interesting to see two aspects. One that Greg mentioned a few talks ago, that maybe the pieces are not for our dimension. Maybe it's we are just seeing parts of the pieces because actually the pieces exist in a higher dimension. So we are only able to see part of the piece. But also I also found interesting that some people said, oh, it looked like a ring, but we don't have the dimension of the piece. So why is it a ring?
It could be, you could imagine it to be as big as a city or something.
It could be big, it could be just a part of the piece. That I found also very interesting.
That's very true.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Did you, in a sense, imagine the pieces being as large as you're seeing them on the screen, or like your intuition?
It depended on where I was seeing it, because I saw it on my cell phone and I saw it on my big screen. So, and even in the screen, I didn't have the whole screen open. I had a small window. So I tended to see brooches, but today sometimes I saw pendants, but then it's I think it has to do because I'm a jeweler, because it didn't need to be that. It could be just an object. It was my own programming, let's say, that tried to fit the image in certain categories. So, but it fascinated me that thing about am I really seeing a piece with this dimension?
That's super interesting indeed. And this is also what happens because basically we asked for like product shots of the pictures of the pieces. And if you have a catalog of jewelry and you have like the works on a white background, then and you don't read like the dimensions, it can also be like, is it very small? How big is it? So by using this white background, it also frees it a bit from like what dimensions you think it might have. But it's true that I have the same when I see something that looks like pearls or like a chain necklace. You immediately
imagine it to be.
Yeah, you tend to go towards like, okay, what you recognize or like what you think it could be. But yeah, we're hoping for like something else. So that's also interesting to have that reaction.
Maybe it could be interesting to show a dreaming session to someone who doesn't know that that it was jewelry in the first place, and then to see if they think that what they are seeing is something completely different or not. Because I think that we have in mind that we have submitted jewelries and we are working with it. So I think that, as someone previously said, we have our own patterns and we know that this is what we sent. But maybe if someone is completely unaware, they could be saying that is something completely different.
Yeah, that would be definitely interesting as well.
And that brings me also for another, I put it in the talk, but yesterday there was a duo working on the evil eye and teaching another machine about jewelry. and that machine learns something, your machine learns something from completely different setbacks, it would be also be interesting to see what they could learn from each other and see the outputs of that. And that would generate another set of information, and it could be very, very interesting to see, because maybe then it would be something else.
Yeah,
jewelry.
I'm super curious as well to see like what will come out of the project of Dovile and Lee, since they are working with exactly the same algorithm, if I'm not mistaken, like the same style.
I don't know.
I think they're working with the same one.
Yeah, I don't know for sure. I knew they were working with
Aegon,
yeah. But I don't know which one.
Yeah,
I don't know the details. So some people might want to keep a secret what they're working in.
Yes. Are we? I'm just looking.
Yeah, those things we
did we already? Yeah. I'm looking through
someone
the chat.
on Twitch asked how much time did the network learn on?
Oh, she's here. Hi, Dovile.
Okay. I think we are about I would think it's a little less than a month. So I think you could say it has learned for 20 days continuously or something. That's the time this algorithm has learned. But we are using free resources, so we're using free servers, and those are slow and they don't have that much space. So if you would have a lot more money, you could train the machine much faster, and it would be exactly the same. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I see that. Okay, sorry, we're just looking through the
adversarial. I think I explained that. If that wasn't clear, I can.
Yeah, the concept of adversarial networks. Paola, this is a question from you. Is this clear for you, or is that something, or should we like try to get back to that? Don't really.
If you could explain.
Hi.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes,
we can hear you.
I kind of missed at the very beginning when you were explaining about the generator and the discriminator, because you say that the generator generates without zero information, and the discriminator has to, from what I understood, I'm repeating it a bit. Discriminator is judging kind of if the generator has picked up the original, or is making, if it's the original, what the generator produces is the original or a new thing, a new image.
A fake. They call it a fake, but you could say generated images.
So the images that you put inside go to the discriminator.
They only go to the discriminator. So the generator doesn't have direct access to the images.
The generator, so you don't feed the generator, but the generator. So then, how he starts generating?
The neural network of the generator, it starts randomized, and so the first images it will generate are like noise, just random, very colorful noise, and the discriminator at the start he won't know what a jewelry piece is, so he won't be able to judge the noise. So, and it will learn, the generator will only learn if the discriminator learns something about the true images. So if it learns like, oh wait, all the true images have a white background, then the generator will slowly start to make things with a white background. After a while, the discriminator will catch on and see from, okay, I can't judge if it's a white background or not. That's not enough to judge if this is a jewelry piece. Maybe it will look for gold or the color yellow, and then the generator will start generating yellow, and then the discriminator catch on, I have to look for more than yellow. So in a sense, it's like asking for someone to draw to draw like, I don't know, a tree or something, asking for someone to draw, and you don't tell him what he has to, he has to guess what he has to draw. And every time he draws something, and every time you see that it's not what it is, you stop him. And so he will, it's a very roundabout way, but what's important about the process is if the generator doesn't get the original images, it doesn't learn specific things about the images. It doesn't learn the images out of its, like it would be, if you would feed it the images straight away, it would just learn the images by heart, and the discriminator would get 2 times the exact same images, and it wouldn't learn anything. So by not giving it to the generator, you hope that the generator learns general things about the images and not that specific piece of jewelry in that angle with that lighting, just the pixels out of it.
Okay, because of that, may I go back? So, okay, I understood now how the generator react to the discriminator, but then the discriminator, because they are just colors, so it's an RGB 0 to 255. Yeah. That's the only thing that is judging, no? The discriminator, so the discriminator gets the real data, like the images, no?
It gets images, and it doesn't know if they're real, and only after it gets the score, like you did it right or wrong. So it judges, and then it gets the score like you judged it right or wrong. So if it knows afterwards if it judged an image right or wrong.
Wow. So when I think this is useful for everybody, because it's a bit difficult to understand. So forgive me if I have questions, kind of breaking down the whole process. So if I understood correctly, at first, when you turn on the machine, like you put the files into the software, but at that moment, the files are just there, no? And when you turn on the software, the one who actually starts is the generator producing images, and then the discriminator, which those images produce, mix with the real images that you have embedded into the system.
The original data set.
So the generator started randomly, blah, blah, blah. Then the real images got in, and the discriminator has to say right or wrong. This is the, okay, because that the software, no, because that you can code, because you create 2 different arrays. So you can say this is the real, and this is the not real. And so then the software can tell the discriminator yes or no. You got it or you didn't get it, no?
Yeah. So the
and that's what he says to the generator.
Yeah. So at the start, you could say they're both really dumb, because one will just create noise, and one will not be able to tell a difference between the noise and the jewelry piece. It's just like, because it's a very because computers are so powerful, they can loop this process so fast, and they go through the images so fast, like thousandths a second, and that's why it starts to learn stuff. They start from they're just random at the start. You could say it's a coin toss, but it's just because it's a gradual process. It can improve in very small steps, but it keeps improving, and that's a large part of what makes machine learning so powerful. You just give it the data, and it gets better at it over time. That's the power of it.
No, that was really clear already from the first talk. The interesting, like what today was really fascinating, and I thank you so much, is when you started to explain the process of how the artificial intelligence software works. Also, because as we were saying in the other, you were saying, everybody was speaking about in the other talks, is like we want to kind of a bit understand it and learn to use it as a methodology, to see what kind of methodology we could extrapolate for our own way of being creative. So in that case, I was let's really kind of clarify the mechanics of the system, so then we can make our own associations to our own respective fields. And so the very last question about the system is like, okay, we know that at the beginning nobody asks, then the generator, then the discriminator. The software is programmed to actually, so the software is programmed to speak with the discriminator. I mean, somebody does tell the discriminator this is right or this is wrong, so that the discriminator.
There's a very basic commands that just feed, that just like runs in loop, and it just gives images, real images. It lets a generator make images, then the discriminator looks at those images, then then they both get score points, if you would say. Like if they get good score points, they know they should do more of the same, and if they were wrong, they should do less of that and do something else. And the logic of that is really simple. It is just that how the machine, if it gets a good score, how it starts to adjust all those neurons that are in that network. It's in very tiny steps, but it just keeps adjusting the neurons, and that's just the power of it. That it just can improve by just adjusting all those neurons a very tiny bit, and that's how you could say the intelligence arise of the aspect. The loop of just the logic of giving it the images and giving it score is very easy in a sense. It's just because they're so large and complicated, they can learn so much from such a simple process.
No, but they do. I mean, actually, no, the logic makes completely sense. It's just that we don't have, because we are organic, so we are dying. Like time affects us tremendously, and we are slow because we need to. Our brain has to move the body and doesn't have so much processing power. But a software doesn't have to use so much resources for the body. So the loop is really fast. If you do the loop super fast, as a machine can do, I guess, which is a bit the challenge for us human, to be able to read. It's like when you make jewelry, the first try experiment, it doesn't work, and you have to try again. If you could redo something a million times in a day, like on the third day, you're the master of the technique. I think.
Yeah, maybe. But the thing is, the machines only can work so fast in the digital realm, in a sense. So if they had to learn to paint and they had to use a brush, they would be as slow as we are. And another point is that's not often talked about is that the amount of energy these computers use is so much more than a single human. So in a sense, they waste so much more resources than a human brain does. I think the brain designed by nature is so much more efficient than the process. It's just in some areas it's indeed a lot faster. Yeah.
No, absolutely not. That is I think it has become the number one industry of contamination, big data, and those the processing of data.
Maybe cryptocurrency is higher still. I don't know. It might be close.
Yeah, cryptocurrency is within this. They are into this. The category of data is being because it was gas and textile. Now, data is the big contaminator. No, it was I got a mechanic. Thank you so much.
No
I love that it starts randomly, because this is not what you expect from a machine, I think. But it starts randomly, like we humans do oftentimes, and then from that, like it learns how to become better, or like.
No, exactly. Like us, it's like what you were saying about Tobias Rees, that he was mentioning artists. Because he was saying about artists being the intermediary between philosophers and engineers, and everybody say that artists are free, which actually is not true. I think philosophers and engineers are a lot freer than artists, because artists they're very more self-judgmental and self-critical, because they need to communicate to a third person, to the audience, while very often engineers, let's be honest, they do the thing because they like it, and they do something that they really like, and they're very free in their work. The same philosopher, but the artist that has to actually communicate the piece of jewelry, the piece of to the audience, is a lot more critical. And in that sense, the discriminator, like that we have this idea that we have the discriminator, it's really that sometimes it's an obstacle. It was very interesting, the association. So what can we learn from artificial intelligence? How to shut down, like how to tame the discriminator in the creative process. So instead of being an obstacle, is a supporter. So it would be interesting to know how we could translate the mechanism of artificial intelligence to tame our discriminator, so that we can go forward instead of always getting,
stuck in being too critical, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. How can we unstuck us?
I think Laila or...
Oh yeah, that was me. But I think you have another question down there, so I wouldn't want to interrupt. Somebody asked a question before me. I think
I see that Karina raised her hand. I'm not sure when this was.
Okay.
We're trying managing 3 screens here. Karin, hi. Go ahead. I'm not sure if it's
my question is...
Doesn't matter.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, very clear.
My question is of a more practical nature, not about discriminators and all that. But I just first have to congratulate you, Annelien and Greg. I find it so inspiring. It is such an interesting project. Thank you very much. My question has got to do with my students. We start with our formal classes for the year on Monday. Because of lockdown, we follow the calendar year, other than you, that start in September. And so I would like them to see these discussions. And I know it will be on the website, but I know students, the first question they're going to ask is, but can we see the jewelry that was fed into the machine, and what does it look like? I saw some of the pieces was on the website, and then other times when I go in it just shows the you call it ornamentation?
Yeah, so if you go to the web page and you go to, on the top left corner, you have like a menu, and it will grow throughout the research, because this is like the first project in the research, but there will be more projects. And if you go to the artificial intelligence #1, then you will have all the submitted images in the background. But if you go to the about page of the entire website, then you will only see like the generated images. So we will upload the recordings of the conversations on the websites. So yeah, the students can have a look at those. I'm not sure when, like next week or the week after.
Yeah, no rush. Yeah, I was clicking about. So sometimes I saw the generated images and sometimes I saw the real jewelry, and I was a bit confused. How did I get to it? Now you've explained. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and you also have like this tiny button that says sort images, and you can see them like more in a grid if you do that.
Or random.
Otherwise, it's more like a chaos.
But I'll email you if I know I need anything. Thank you so much.
But they're all on the site. If you keep scrolling, you would see all 968 images that were used.
Wow.
They should be. If not, then something went wrong with the website, but they should
they
should all be on there. Yeah.
And I think it's a very nice platform for students to start research, because they can sort of go through this massive images and see what interests them, and then go and follow and look and see if there's more about this person to know,
Yeah, I also love that it's sort of platform like you've just mentioned. And I mean, all those images are also, most of them are also like hyperlinks to the makers' websites. So you can see it in the context of the project, but also see it as like a database of contemporary pieces and like start from there. And what I also would like to mention is that also in the top left corner, there are like blue and yellow sticky notes. And the website is really designed that visitors of the website can also interact. So if you click on those notes, you can either like leave a general note, which is like the blue one, or you can choose like the yellow one. And then you can specifically, as a visitor, add a comment to an image or like to a paragraph of text or something. And we did that because we hope that the website will really function like like a platform where people can exchange ideas. And I will start writing reflective texts on the website, and I would love if people would, comment on pieces of text, like maybe if they have like a different idea or like references that might be interesting for that, or like questions, that it becomes like this living thing. So if the students would like to use that feature as well, please feel free to invite them.
Thank you.
Leila, you just raised your hand as well. So
I understand that you're in the process of like educating the machine now, and I'm sure that's going to be endless. And
yeah.
it's a, you know, kind of well educated. What's it going to give back to the world? When is it going to start giving back to the world? And what is it going to give back? What's the goal here? You know, it's a kind of a goal-oriented. It is not a goal-oriented at the moment. Whatever you feed is given back. I kind of more goal-oriented. So I'm just wondering, when I start a project, I'm kind of heading to a certain thing, to finish a piece or whatever it is. So what is the goal here? Have you set a goal, or is this like an ongoing fun research? I mean, I find it very fun because I'm just here, you know, like watching you guys and really enjoying what's going on, looking at the screen and trying to find my piece of jewelry there. I mean, it's a lot of fun for me. But, you know, with you, what's the goal there? I mean,
yeah, it's part of an artistic research. Like a postdoc research that I'm currently doing. And so like the larger research is on imagining jewelry and like exploring current technologies. And then we dove into like this machine learning aspect. So that's where the focus is on right now. And for me, I'm really interested in exploring like what potential machine learning has for jewelry, or like potential threats as well. So with this first project, we are researching, okay, how like, well, not only with this project, but like how can it work as a design tool? Like imagine that you take the generated images as input for like a next project, or how can it be like a collective creation tool, working with all of you and with all your works to create something also in collaboration with the AI. How can it be like an experimental exhibition? So for me, really, the focus is on the research and through various projects. So this is like the first one. We have other ones in mind for the nearby future. More on that will be shared on the website. But for me, it's really like seeing, like experimenting and exploring and doing reflective research on what happens through these kind of conversations with you, or like writings or presentations. And for now, we shared like the live dreaming sessions, but to work with different kind of media, or like showing the generated output, or like using it again as a sort of material for maybe something else, is all part of the project. So it's not, I don't have like a very concrete answer to like the goal, but that's what it is for me, like the artistic research aspect of it. Yeah.
In one sense, we were playing around with it, and just what it made, we found it so interesting that I think we wanted to share what the possibility is. I think that's for me the purest answer.
Yeah.
What the goal is. It's if it moves me in some way, the thing that I'm creating, I'm willing to share it with other people and hope they experience something in the same. I really hope this inspires other people, not per se to make jewelry with artificial intelligence, but maybe to make art inspired by just a new point of view, maybe.
Well, actually, yeah, it is very generous of you to share, you know, what you're putting together. And yeah, we have to see how it's going to impact our life. And thank you so much, and congratulations.
Yeah, no, thanks all of you. I'm also super curious to hear, but maybe we should just like go through the other questions first, but like super curious to hear of the participating artists, like what triggered you to participate in the project? Like what did you hope for? Like what was the main reason to send in images? I'm very curious to know that as well.
Yeah, well, personal for me, it was just a new venue, and I'm a curious person, so I just was so happy to join in.
We are happy as well.
Yeah, I think it's funny because there were quite a few people that were like a bit suspicious, like, oh, so you're just gonna use my designs, and what do I get in return? Like, people were like a bit suspicious of the project in a sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's very interesting, like giving over your data to,
well also,
of course, because for all we know that it could just make an exact image of the image they send in. Someone could say, oh, I was inspired by the machine, and make exactly the same piece of jewelry, and then say like, copying other artists, like being inspired by them, it's a very fuzzy line, I think.
Yeah, and this is one of the questions that is definitely raised with this project, like what if, I mean, there is a big difference if this is like artistic research, what it is, or if we would like start selling prints of the generated images, like what would it mean in terms of like authorship or ownership, or like how each of you is a part of the project. So and I'm very interested in precisely reflecting on all those things triggered by those dreaming sessions. But of course, the dreaming sessions, as you've just mentioned, it's like it started with us being fascinated by this as a tool, and like what can we do with this? What might it have to offer for jewelry? And so that's a little bit how it went. I see here, what about the emotional and spiritual aspects of human consciousness? This
very big question.
Yeah. But it, like, interestingly, Katja is joining us, I see. Hi. Such a big question.
Very specific thing, so I thought I might just elaborate.
Yes.
That it was just referring back to this discussion earlier about machine learning and you know where I guess where are the limits of what a machine can learn, and you know that goes back to that discussion a couple of days ago with a mathematician, and you know what is, you know, where's the conscious aspect of it?
Yeah, in a sense, like I think it's a discussion in and of itself how conscious we are. I don't think we could say like it's anywhere near of what we consider as conscious at this moment. But we I don't think any philosopher or scientist at the moment has an explanation of where consciousness does come from. There's no proof at the moment. Is it something that emerges out of material? Like it's so very complicated. But in a sense, like I do think we emerged out of natural selection. So consciousness came out of something that does not seem consciousness. It came out of something that's like an algorithm. So I do think, theoretically speaking, like if we kept making the AI more complicated, I think something like consciousness could emerge in theory.
Yeah.
But at this point, it's just recognizing patterns. But that's a large part of what our brain does, I think, is recognizing patterns. But still, there's something untouchable about something. It's called the hard problem, the problem of consciousness. And I think, we're still not close to creating it out of a machine, I think.
And I think you, Katja, also mean like that we humans have like these emotional responses and like the spiritual aspects, and that the machine doesn't have it. Like it's that, I mean, maybe I'm mistaken, but that you probably mean like, okay, this AI is maybe like super intelligent, but it misses out on like all these other human conscious aspects.
Mm-hmm.
I think like Marcus Dussotoy also had like this in his book, has this interesting, he gives a lot of examples of AI art projects. And one of the examples is that with an AI, they painted a Rembrandt's painting, and that like a critic finds it horrible. And he says like, but the AI had to like live through the entire life of Rembrandt to be able to like paint one of his paintings. Like an AI doesn't have like life experience that a human has, and that yeah. So I think that's a bit what you were maybe referring to.
Yeah, also going back 2 days ago, that he was mentioning in music with the Bach piece, where
yes.
cut out a couple of segments of a Bach piece, and you know, there was, and the audience couldn't tell, but the
keyboard player
was able to tell that there was that something was wrong, and it had to do with the hand, so the physical aspect of it, right? And that's another thing that you mentioned, right? The physical part of making things. But it also had to do with the language, right? That which I felt like the algorithm could have corrected that it was like the English cadence that was in the piece, and somehow the algorithm overlooked that.
Yeah, I think it's very hard to design an algorithm that learns from the right context in the same way as we humans do, as Bach did. By the context was the English language, and he translated it in that way. You could make an algorithm that makes music in exact the cadence of the English language, but it would be very hard to make an algorithm that could make that connection by itself, and that we could that we don't have to program it to look for that cadence in it, because it's connecting two unrelated things like English language and music. Well, it's related, but it's not directly related in that sense.
So that actually brings me to a question that I have for you, and that is, would you be able with your algorithm to somehow kind of program in the fact that jewelry is worn on the body in some fashion? You know, could that be, I don't know, could that be part of the project? Because I think earlier somebody said about this, you know, the way that this right now looks is sort of in this white space of nothingness, and we don't know how large it is, and we all know because we're jewelry that it's jewelry, but nobody else would. So how about like, is there a way to kind of bring in at least that, if not a physical reference, but at least that reference of the body as scale?
Yeah. In the beginning, like at the start of this project, like at the open call, we actually wanted to ask for a second set of images where the pieces are effectively worn on the body. Because what I would love to see as well is when you would feed it images with bodies wearing pieces, then it will probably, like, in a certain way merge those pieces and those bodies. And I think that will look very interesting as well. But then we decided not to do that because it became a bit complex to ask for like these. Like,
as a first step, like I think we're still interested in
we are
that
still
avenue,
interested in that one,
but like
we didn't include it yet.
If you feed it bodies, what comes out is very interesting, but it like you will start looking at the bodies, which are will start out very weird, and then people will look more at the disfigured kind of bodies, which are very interesting, and less at the jewelry that's designed on it. So as a first step, I think it was best to start with the white background, to start with the idea of a jewelry piece, kind of in a sense the essence of it, but like combining it with bodies is a very interesting idea, and I think we might pursue it still.
There is this fashion designer, Robbie Barrett, and he fed a machine learning algorithm Balenciaga catwalk shows. And what the algorithm generates is like the arm of the models, like it goes like into the backpack and like, or like the purse and so on. So it becomes like this one strange hybrid body. And I think that's super interesting as well. Where actually like this error in which the algorithm doesn't really make a distinction between like the object and the body, but this is precisely what I find most fascinating on these the
data you put in the site, what it wants. It will not know that there's a distinction between the arm and the piece of jewelry.
Yeah,
it will see it as one image.
Yeah, so I think that for jewelry that can be fascinating as well, like, or that's something that I am curious to see what would come out. Yeah,
you could complicate things and give it two sets of data, a set of jewelry pieces and a set of jewelry pieces on bodies, and you could program it that it learns to distinguish the two, and then you could change the body types, the skin colors, and the jewelry pieces independently, if that is what you wanted to do. That's theoretically possible, but then it becomes something else, I think.
Another question, which is super interesting: what makes the output jewelry? Just because the input is jewels, does it mean the outcome is too? Good question. I have some thoughts on that, but I mean, I would love to open the discussion up as well to everyone present here. Like maybe as participants of the project, like what are your ideas on what like these generated ornamutations, as we call them, and
I think maybe some of you might think of what's coming out as sketches, maybe, instead of
as sketches.
A sketch.
A sketch,
like you would do with a pencil in a book, like an idea for a design, and not per se a jewelry piece.
Yeah, I think that's one. That's
one way of looking at it.
That you can use it or like perceive it. Maybe like selecting some of the images and then making something else out of it. I think, I mean, definitely.
Does it even have to be
Go ahead.
Does it even have to be defined at all? That's why, sorry, I've just set up that question because I wanted to question everyone. Does it have to be defined as any type of jewelry, or does it have to be defined as an artwork? You know, is an output. Does it have to be defined what it is? It's just the thing that, you know, the machine created. Does it have to have a name?
We humans have a tendency to categorize and define the whole time, I think.
Exactly.
Not that it's a good idea. I don't think it's a good tendency, but it's so very human of us to define things. This is food, this is a threat, this is an opportunity. It's so hardwired. So we want to call it if we say something new, I think.
How do you, like you've just mentioned, like, should we call it jewelry or should we just call it like art or output? What are your thoughts on this?
I think as a viewer, I didn't take part in the project, but as a viewer, what I experienced is like a merge of different artworks into one beautiful kind of piece of work, but not necessarily, I didn't have to name it as jewelry. For me, it was just an output. I didn't define it as anything. Yeah, because exactly it was not worn on the body. Therefore, if it's not worn on the body, is it jewelry?
Yeah, those are all very good questions. I think for me, it's important to, one way or another, place it in the jewelry context, because this is what I would like to reflect on through this project. And this is also a bit what we discussed the first day, like this balance between when it is still recognizable as jewelry, or in one way or another, it is communicated as jewelry, or like as if it has to do things with jewelry. But where was I going with this? I think for me that's why it might be important. Maybe not necessarily to call these generated images jewels, which is also why we call them ornamutations, I think, because like in a way it feels a bit different for us. But still, I think I'm looking for this connection with like the jewelry discourse, and that's why for me it's still in there. Yeah. But I see Linda raises her hand.
Yes. Could you just use it like you would use a video and like project it on a body, the whole thing, like make that's something I am interested in projecting visible but intangible jewelry on the body. You could also project it on the wall, like jewelry for the wall.
The people who run by are wearing it, in a sense.
It's something that I'm working on, that I'm really interested in.
That would definitely be a possibility.
Jewelry. Yeah,
that'll be a great collection, right? great connection. But what about the artistic rights there, ownership? I think that'll become a problem then. But I mean, Linda, I was just thinking about the same thing about reflecting and having, you know, I also collect jewelry, so I'm very much into jewelry. And can you imagine the collection that I'll be carrying on my body by just reflecting it on my body? But I think they're authorship, ownership, and you know, it'll be quite a muddle there, you know. Things to be worked on.
But I can also imagine like a huge label with all your names like next to it with like the caption.
I mean, I think it's not only about you know, having your name on it, but it's the creation. And you were talking about the effortless feeding you're doing, and every artist, the effort they put in work, and they want to be seen, and they want people to look at the piece of jewelry and see the effort. But there again, it's just going to be when the images were going so fast, I just thought maybe you just didn't have enough time, so you had to speed it up because there was so many inputs, so many jewelers, you know, like participating. So that was kind of passing. I said, gosh, why is this so fast? And I said, must have been like so many people joining, so many jewelers, the family, the jewelry family, the jewelry world is just fantastic. So, and a big one, a huge one now. So I said that must have been the reason. But no. sorry, I'm jumping from one subject to another, but it's just Linda, I think that's a great idea, the video.
Yeah, and you could imagine it giving it away, giving your rights away like an open source. Why would I make a piece of jewelry that I would give the rights away to you, to anybody, and make something out of it?
But are we really the owners of, sorry, Linda, are we really we are all like parents of the thing, but we are not really owners of the pieces. We didn't generate the pieces, the machine generated the pieces. So I don't think we are owners of the pieces. It's just like parents. We don't own the child, you know, the child then created something else. We could be referred as like feeders of the thing, but actually we didn't create the pieces. The machine did.
That's true.
So we are not really the creators of the pieces. And
in a sense, all those pieces, every artist wants to make his own piece and wants to be original, but all the pieces that were sent in, you rely on so many different designs of jewelry you saw before and other pieces of art. Like these pieces are made out of like more than 100 jewelry designers. If you make a piece of jewelry, you're probably inspired by the same amount of people, or maybe even a lot more. Like how much of a piece is you made the physical thing, but there's so many ideas that brought you to make jewelry. Like none of you invented jewelry by itself, in a sense.
Exactly, and the people that inspired me are not owners of my idea and of my output. So I don't feel myself as an owner of the output of the machine, and I don't really think I have the right to give away the authorship or allow the machine, okay, you have no, because it's not really my work, actually. So
I'm sure there will be people who do bring up the subject.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So I mean, people, I think, basically wants to be appreciated the effort, like parents do. If we're talking about parents and feeding.
Yeah.
After you bring up or feed your child, I'm not a parent, but I know, obviously, parents would love to be appreciated, right?
Yeah, but
not to control that person, or like stop them, or just appreciate. I think I think for artists that's very important.
So when someone wins a Nobel Prize, the parents should get a prize. When someone wins a Nobel Prize, the parents should get a prize as well.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. But I can see people trying to own the result, but yeah. And I don't have children either, so it's yeah.
Yeah, but this is definitely an interesting question that is raised, and like, yeah, you don't really have answers for it yet, but yeah, I think we will also explore that through the project, and so grateful for hearing your opinions on this as well. I saw that Ilaria, you raised your hand like 10 minutes ago.
Yeah. It's just because yesterday I was listening to the talk, and I think that something similar to this question popped up, and so I had like some time to think about what I think of it, at least what I think that I think of it, because I think that I need more time to process the whole thing. But to me, the interesting part is that it's almost a kind of multimedia experiment, like audio-visual performance at the moment. And also, I think that if we were to project the images on someone, that would be still a kind of audiovisual performance. And I think that that's probably why performances are so interesting, because somehow they lie between new things. Like before something new comes to life, you have performances, I think, like people trying to understand and to figure out through interactions and common, I don't know, mindset, what comes after and after and after. And so I think that, in my opinion, at the moment, it's a really interesting middle ground performance, music, videos, photos, and objects together. So I see it as a performance for now.
Mm-hmm.
Which is really interesting, in my opinion. Is not an attempt to reduce the outcome, you know. To me, it's really interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I understand, and I'm very interested in like this performative aspect of jewelry as well. So and yeah, that's like as I've just mentioned, to work with different media is really on our mind, to show various aspects of like the research and the projects that we will be working on. So what you've just mentioned is something that, I mean, would definitely be it's definitely interesting in that sense, and especially like this combination between images, objects, you know, like how it can all work together in a certain way, and then also like add this intelligence aspect of the AI, as well as like each of you, and then it becomes like this very layered thing.
Yeah. Also, I don't know if you recorded the dream.
You asked this. We recorded everything, but we will only share the conversations on the websites, probably. Yeah. Because we really wanted like the past 4 days to be like an experience in itself. But I mean, yeah, we'll see what the future will bring in terms of.
So to me, these things makes it even more like a performance. Like you're there and you see it, or you don't have trace of it, and so you have also this kind of happening thing, you know, this kind of you're there and that's it. But if you're not there, you will just see some bits of it, and you will lose the proper. Yeah, you won't experience it properly, or entirely.
Yeah. But I because the website is really like this research platform as well. I would love to include like some parts of it, as you've just mentioned. So maybe I assume that we might like upload a different version of it, but I think not the ones that we saw this week.
Yeah. The concept of the of the dreams were that they were in the moment created, and once you start recording things, we're starting to curate, and that might be possible. But I think for the initial thing, I think it was interesting. to try to distance ourselves from what it might output, so as to speak.
I'm just checking out. Yeah, so there are some comments on the like that our minds work similarly as a computer, that we unconsciously filter images and only think about the ones that we feel worthy, while guns only have the filters that are given to them. Yeah. Okay, we are through the chat. But and 2 hours in the conversation, I see now. But that's okay. Is there anyone else that would like to ask something to us or each other, share something?
No, I think it's something that is very exciting, and I would love to be part of it, or just get along with it, or even have some input. So I think everybody here that I saw is very excited. Yeah. Good work. Good work.
Thank you.
Well,
yeah.
A big thanks goes to all of you, because it wouldn't be possible otherwise.
Yeah. So actually, I think the idea of working all together, working is a big word, or just exchanging ideas is really, really, really nice, and internationally.
Yeah. This is like, I mean, we're all a bit fed up with all the like Zoom things, but then on the other hand, like it's precisely it makes also things possible, right? To connect internationally, and it also has like some potential to.
It's even better than going to Munich. Almost, you would not have been able to do that at the Munich Jewellery Week. Not have that same amount of input. So it's really like it. We miss Munich, but you did really well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm very impressed.
Thank you, Linda. So really appreciate
so much for the project. It's amazing, and it was my first Munich fest. It was the first time I went to Munich. I'm able to be to Munich, so it was amazing. And I'm all fascinated with science because of my background and everything. So it's been a pleasure, and I'm congratulations to both of you. And I'm really eager to see where all this goes, and if possible, continue to participate and work with you, even if it's like feeding your machine, because actually we are just the food for the machine. We are not the parents, you are the parents, but it's a really, really.
But I love this idea that we are all the parents. It's like our baby.
Yeah, but yeah, right now we are well, my work was just the food for the machine, but it was really a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so let's all keep in touch. I think we're going to wrap it up here, unless if anyone would like to, I don't know, say something more. Keep an eye on the website, as well as the Instagram page, because we will be sharing updates on the research. And you can also, I mean, have a look at read more about the project in the future. Check out all the participating artists who were so generous to let us use their images to feed the machine. You can check out their work. Yeah, so a big thanks to all of you who were here with us today in the past few days.